All right, it's my pleasure to bring on someone I've been communicating with on Twitter for several years now.
Hold on, let me stop you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question in front of everybody.
Okay.
First of all, I know you got like what, 4.5 million listeners? Because I don't do anything. I don't do anything under 4 million. I told you that.
And how many in 18 to 49?
Oh, that's a good question. You got me. Oh, I wasn't as prepared for that one. But here's your, do you keep Dave Meltzer waiting how you made me wait this morning?
Sometimes.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead with my intro. Let's see how good you are.
All right. So he's busting my chops a little bit, but I've been communicating with him. I know him as Jay. You all know him as the Great Fowler. How's it going, man?
It's going good. I expected a little bit better of an intro, though, but it's okay.
Well, you cut me off. Like, I had it all prepared. I wrote it down, and then we had to audible.
So you're saying you're not good at improv is what I'm getting.
Look, I could definitely use some lessons. Like no, for real. Like, the people who I think are the most talented people in the world are improv comedians. I'm just in awe of improv in general. It's an amazing skill set, but I know it's not just like a natural talent. Like, these people work their ass off on it.
Well, actually, a lot of it is, well, starting off in a weird direction, but a lot of it is, I used to be in the performing arts. A lot of it is natural, but with improv comedy, there's a structure you have to follow. Like, you never say no.
Right.
Because if you do, you cut off the other person's angle completely. Hey,
right.
Didn't I see you yesterday at the mall? No. Where does it go? So
exactly.
So there's rules you have to follow. But I got to give you credit, first off. You do podcasts with Dave Meltzer, obviously.
Yes.
And then you do podcasts with a mutual friend of ours, John Moxley. And I'm not just saying that to put myself over. I'm saying it because he's actually a really good guy.
Yes.
You do podcasts with two people who admittedly have no technical ability. And you make it work somehow. So I figured, I'm okay technically. So, I figured...
No, you're several steps ahead of Dave and Mox when I first started recording with them.
Yeah. Oh, how bad was Mox? Let's bust his balls for a bit.
Okay, so the first time we did the show with John, the first person who actually popped up on camera was Renee. And I was like, oh, hi. And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm helping John get on this thing. And he's like, all right, we're on. We got it. You can hear me? Yeah. Okay, let's go. So, yeah, she's definitely helped him. But, obviously, once you get the hang of this thing, he's been able to connect just by himself the last few times. And look, this technology stuff, like it is really like, so Brian Alvarez came on my podcast. We did a book club.
Right.
And he mentioned how when he first started doing podcasting, it was so hard. Like that he was really at the beginning of this whole thing with microphones and mixers and trying to figure out that whole thing. And he's like, but now it's so easy. Like, I'm so jealous that, you can buy a mic, you can plug it in, there's software ready. Like, people have really been creating technology for this. And so, it is not hard. I think the hard part is in the fear of just not knowing how, not knowing exactly what you're doing.
Right. Well, I think with Mox, there's no fear. He just doesn't give a shit about technology.
Absolutely.
I just think he's like, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, call me on the phone, But yeah, I think I told you when I told him I was doing this or thinking about doing it, he goes, you got to do it. He goes, Garrett's a great guy. So
that's awesome.
He's a big fan of what you do. And
there's you have opportunities to do stuff. And look, Dave was an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Dave and I were pretty decent friends, but it wasn't until we started really recording together, like decent friends as far as, I would go over his house every month or so to watch WWE stuff. And my buddy, John LaRocca, we both sort of started doing it at the same time. John beat me by a couple months or whatever. And that was kind of the thing. It's like, oh, and then, email him or whatever and just, see him at events. But, once we did start recording together, that relationship, that bond you create with a partner or a co-host, like, that is real. Like, if you think about it, when you do a podcast, like when I do a podcast with John LaRocca, who's one of my really good friends, we don't really talk outside of texting except in that 2 hours that we podcast every Thursday night. So that is our opportunity to not only talk about what we're doing on the show, but to also catch up, in a personal way. So that when you do a show with someone, you do create a relationship that extends beyond the podcast. So that's also, that's an added benefit to doing these things, is you get to learn people. I've done shows with, a lot of people, thanks to Dave, who I would have never been introduced to before. And so, I'm always thankful. And whenever he needs to do something, literally, I'm like, okay, I will help. We will figure this out. I'm going to help you do this show that you want to do with someone who doesn't know how to do this. We'll make it work, because at the end of the day, he's got his real job, which is the newsletter.
Right.
This is the podcast thing is sort of his secondary job, and I want to make that as easy as possible, because he has nights like the other night where he gets the Patterson bio done. Yeah. He's like, oh my God, I was up until 4:00 in the morning on Thursday, doing stuff, and I'm like,
right.
Yeah.
I heard the podcast for you and LaPrade. Yeah,
So,
right. Yeah, and it was just like this. Like the beginning of it was just Dave saying what a crazy few days he had.
So I know that you do not want to do a show where we're just talking about, come support the Great Fowler. I know that is not what you want to do, though. I do want to give people the opportunity to do that, and we'll talk about that at the end.
Thank you.
But the one thing, because I'm trying to tie in the timeline on me when I first started talking to you, and then you have kind of a funny story of when we sort of abruptly stopped talking.
Hey, I was going to say, do you want to get into when we stopped following each other?
That is completely up for grabs there. But I guess the thing is so I knew you as Jay.
Yeah.
And then we stopped talking, and I guess, I lost touch. I lost view of you.
Well, Tyson, you knew me as Jay because I contacted you on Twitter when you did your first. Oh, it might not have been your first, but the first I was aware of podcasts with Dave.
Right when we started doing it in the beginning.
Right.
Because you were up like so late every time I would publish, and then we'd publish late, and then you'd immediately reply to that thing, and I'd be like, holy crap, this guy's
right.
awake.
And I'd be like, when is it coming on? And, I'm going to stay up for it. But it's funny because you were mentioning your relationship. I wanted to squeeze this in before you moved on. And don't worry, it's a compliment. You started where you basically would just go, hi, I'm Garrett, and I'm here with Dave. And at the end, you'd go, okay, thank you, goodbye. Yep. And it would be an hour and 15 minutes of Dave talking, and you bringing up what he asked you to bring up. You grew so much as a podcaster from that. So while you were saying you built a relationship with Dave, you just not built it with him. You built it with the audience as well, man. And it's really cool.
I really
it's really cool
that.
to be doing this with you. But,
and you, just to describe what you're talking about, which is when I got asked to do that show, it was because, Brian is starting his family, right? Like he has 2 young children.
Well, he only does 15 hours of podcasting a week.
This was even before his youngest daughter was born. So this is just when Paisley and so Dave, Dave he has all of these ideas. You can imagine the kind of creative person that he is, and he's like, oh, I want to talk to this person, I want to talk to this person. And when he
passes away, his mind has to go to science because he's found storage in his brain that other people don't have.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing. But so he was just looking to do stuff, and Brian wasn't as available because he's running the jiu-jitsu school, he's running the website, like you said, he's doing his own audio, and so Dave was like, oh, I want to do this show, and then they just simply couldn't connect every single time. They would do stuff, but Dave was just like, oh, I wish I could do this, and then so. I don't remember exactly if I broached it to Dave or if I was like, hey, maybe I can help you, or if Brian just sent me a note and was like, hey, can you help Dave? And so Brian just sent me the equipment and was like, here you go. And I was like, oh my God, how do I even do this? And it wasn't that I didn't know how to do it, because I'd been doing stuff before, but the audience for this show, right, is so much bigger than anything I'd ever done. But also, the audience has a specific thought process about how this thing should go, right? Brian and Dave have been doing podcasts since 2000. Actually even before that. Maybe the IATA show was even before that. But so there's a relationship between them and that audience that I was very intimidated by. So when we first started doing it, I had no real idea in how to do it. And then I said, okay, I really know how to do this. I'm a little bit more comfortable and so the other part was technically in my mind, I was constantly thinking like, is this thing recording? Is this thing recording? Is this thing recording? So there were two things that kind of, it was a little intimidating in the beginning, but once I got comfortable with the technical side, and then I was able to really focus on the hosting side, then I decided, okay, I have something with Dave that could be a little bit different, and let's try to make this a little bit more conversational. It's a little bit different from how Brian and Dave do it, but I had the benefit of actually doing it in person. And when you can do audio with somebody in person in an interview, I can see Dave's eyes. I can see when he's going to pause. I can see when he's thinking and he sort of looks to the right. I can see when he's turning away from the microphone to grab some papers and nobody can hear him. And then I got to fill in the silence, that kind of stuff. So when you do that, like I said, it's really a relationship. So as our relationship as friends grow, you could tell in the conversational aspect of what we were doing.
But it grew also with the audience, because if you came on and just started talking wrestling, people would be like, why am I listening to some guy named Gary that lives near him?
Right.
Right.
Totally.
Nobody wanted to hear from you at first.
Absolutely.
So you built that trust with the people listening. And it was... To go a long way to tie it in, I've been offered other podcasts, and I told you this before you walked, you and I, and they were great podcasts, but they were based around like watching a wrestling show or discussing, and I'm like, nobody gives a crap about my opinion. Like I kidded earlier that we were going to review the Godfather versus Val Venus feud from 1999. I mean, that's what most podcasts are.
But, and if people bought it.
Oh, no, totally. They were like, oh, this is going to be great. And I wrote, or not. But I mean, like somebody whose opinion you care about talking about that is funny. Just another guy. And I got it, man. I know that people wanted to help me, and they figured, come on my podcast, so you can plug your website, and we'll get into all that stuff in a bit. And I was like, I don't want to use anybody's podcast for that. You came at me from the perspective of your story's interesting, and obviously we'll have to get into that for people to realize, but your story's interesting, and I think it could help people. And from that angle, I'm like, screw it, man. I got a pair of headphones and a mic somewhere. I can plug this into a laptop and make this work. And plus, like I said, you worked with Mox, so that's right. And I mean, as much as he doesn't think he is, he's personality plus. But you made him comfortable enough to do 3 or 4 podcasts with you. So
he's
his recommendation was like, do it, man. He's great. So Oh, I got a suggestion, by the way, from Mox.
Sure.
Congratulations on the announcement of his daughter. You know that yesterday they cut the cake and it was a pink cake. You caught that, right? Now I have a great idea for her name. It's genius. You ready?
Go for it.
Oh, I got a phone call. Don't worry about it. I won't answer. I got a great name. Now my nickname is the Great Fowler.
Yes.
What's John's last name? Real life. Everybody knows. You're not right. Fowler Good. How good is that? Call the daughter Fowler. I can live on past my expiration date. Fowler Good. I think that's perfect. What do you think?
So that actually makes me think of the name. So you've told this story on Twitter before, and there's audio evidence of how you got this name. So I know you as Jay, and I'll tie this back into what we were talking about. I know you as Jay. We get unconnected, and so I don't hear from you for a while, and then I see the Great Fowler on Twitter, and I see Dave talking with you and Brian talking with you, and I'm like, oh. I was kind of thinking, like, is this Jay? I don't really know. But then I just like, oh, he's a cool guy, so I want to connect with him too. So can you sort of tie in the Jay account to the Great Fowler account, and like what was the transition and why and all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, just real quickly. My name's Jay, and I was going under Jay Dumont on on Twitter. And then Granny and Brian and Vinny did this great episode where Granny got conned on some website and started believing that all these fake names for The Undertaker was The Undertaker's name. And one of them was the Great Fowler. I have never laughed so hard. Like the other ones were like Big Evil, like Punch McLightning. You know what I mean? Evil Chops. Oh, a Tall Bastard. And the Great Fowler. So I just said, there's something really funny about that because it sounds like that could be a nickname, the Great Fowler. Mm-hmm. So I just changed my Twitter handle to that, and everybody seemed to like it, so I kept it. And I mean, I had no attachment to the other name, and I might have had 50 followers, and you were one of them at one point. And then and then we argued over a troll. Let's put it that way. And then like we weren't mad at each other. We just stopped talking, and then the Great Fowler, and then I got ill, and Dave and Brian started retweeting my situation because they thought the government was really not treating me the way they should, and then it kind of built from there, and I became this sort of like peripheral member of the WON community, to where I'm getting like linked into like highlight videos, and I mean, I'm like, me and Jim Valley are talked about in the same sentence, and Jim Valley worked his ass off for the site. I'm sitting at home on my rear end doing nothing for the site. And it was it's just so we kind of built our relationship back up, and you were kind enough to ask me to do this, and I want to help people.
Again, I think most people listening to this kind of know your situation, but what is like the quick explanation? We don't have to dig in too much into the illness, but like, can you kind of explain quickly what happened? I have
a heart condition. If you know, I mean, I can hit you with a bunch of medical terms that most go over a lot of people's head, but the most probably known one is called AFib. It's atrial fibrillation, which means various things. You can look it up. But I was rushed to ICU in January, and I was in the hospital for 19 straight days, and I was in ICU, and my heart was maxing out at 10% functionality. So they legitimately thought I was going to pass. I called my sister, made sure she came down, and I'm in ICU. And I lost 45 to 50 pounds in toxic fluid in 3 days. That's how long this has been building up for 5 years. I didn't realize. I just thought I'm getting older, I'm gaining weight. I didn't realize all this toxic fluid was building up because of my heart and where the blood's flowing and not flowing. So I sat there and I look at a doctor, and I'm in ICU. When you're in ICU for 3, 4, 5 days, things aren't good. And I looked at the doctor and I said, am I going to die? And the doctor said, we're not going to let you. Within a day, I was out of ICU, or out of immediate danger. And I never forgot that moment, because it made me care about fighting for my life. Not that I was suicidal, but I was at a low point, and I decided, you know what? It's just time. Let me just go. When he said, we're not going to let you, I said, well, if you're not, I'm not. And I didn't do anything physically. Internally, I just said, I'm not giving up. And miraculously, I'm alive 10 months later, 11 months later. Wow, it's been a long time. In that time, my situation is still very dire. And to make a long story short, unless I'm attached to machines and life vests and all this stuff, I don't have much time. I probably within 6 months from a month or two ago. I'm okay with that. It's not the way I want to live. It's not the way I want to die, actually. But I don't want to live the other way. I don't want to have have living nurses, and I don't have a wife. I don't have kids, so I don't need to see somebody go through their eighth grade graduation. I'd rather go out on my terms and know it and right a lot of the wrongs. And I think what happened on Twitter was that honesty built relationships with people like yourself, and a lot of people I'll never meet. I have a lot of people from all over the world that contact me back. And I realized that putting it out there makes people see the positivity that can happen from talking to strangers online. Twitter is a cesspool if you allow it to be.
So just so people, because I know we want to raise some awareness about this here, is it I don't know anything about the illness. Is it a genetic thing? Is
No.
it something that happened? Like, how did you actually go from being fairly healthy and then to not being healthy?
Well, I've always had asthma, so asthma takes its toll on your heart, but that wouldn't cause this. It's 5 or 6 years ago when it started happening. I didn't catch it. I just thought I was getting heavier. I was getting older. I'm in my mid-50s, so I figured, oh, I'm 50. I'm going to be slowing down. Oh, my asthma's getting good. Oh, I can't walk as much. I'm getting older. Oh, I'm gaining weight because I'm burning less calories. I didn't meet this head on. So I had 5 years of heart issues that should have killed me several times. And then one day I just went, I couldn't even lay down because I had to be in a position where I was leaning forward in order to breathe. So I just said, I'm going to die and this is that. I was ready to go. I said my goodbyes. I wrote emails. And then I was in so much pain. I said, I can't even do this. So I called an ambulance. And like I said, I was in the hospital for 20 days. And, they saved my life. And they said, you can continue to live this way. And we're going to put you on really powerful meds. But unless you, get, all these electronic heart things going into you, and I don't want to live like that. So I know to some people they're going to say, I'm not taking life as serious, but you can go fuck yourself. It's my choice on how I live my life, and I rather do this than just keep going and be unhappy. So I'd rather know what I'm dealing with, and on the way out, be positive, tell people my story, and help people. The sad interaction of that was the government has done absolutely nothing for me and has put me behind the 8 ball financially, which is something that that will be discussed later. That's great about the community. But in that, I just want people to know the value of a breath and how important that is. And that was before COVID.
Right.
And so I was just telling people, if you see anybody who needs help, I am so glad I didn't give up. Am I living a great life now? No. I make $1,000 less a month from the government than I need to survive. I am sick every day of my life. My specialist said, you are never going to have a good day. You're going to have days that aren't as bad as the day before. And that's the truth. I am not suicidal because I see the value in waking up every day, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but just talking to nice people like yourself, getting this opportunity, getting to know other people that we both know. Just seeing the good in people out there has really made me want to live longer and function the way I've been functioning. And I decided that, if I'm going to do this and people somehow care about my story, who have no idea of me prior to this, I am going to use that for good. And I started helping people who are suicidal because I can identify what they're talking about. I am not taking the responsibility of handling their life situations for them, but just giving them a sounding board for somebody who knows what it's like. Most people don't want to die. And this is something around the holidays that people need to realize. Most people that give up don't want to die. They just don't want to wake up again. Meaning they wake up and their life's so shitty that they don't know if they have it in them to do another day. I'm sorry, I'm going to be coughing through this. And that's something I wanted people to know they're not alone in. Nobody sits there and goes, I want to die. I can't say nobody. Some people obviously do. But most people are just like, I hate my life. I don't want to wake up and continue with tomorrow. So I focus them on the good. I've spoken to at least 15 people or families of people who were suicidal, including one gentleman, and I'm going to tie this back to Moxley, who I believe his mother's sister or our mother's sister's husband was a wrestling fan, and he saw my story and saw my tweets about helping suicidal people. And his mother and father contacted me, not wrestling fans, but this kid was. And she said, my son tried to commit suicide. He was in his early 20s, and he had a learning disability. I'm not sure exactly, but he was slow in some way. And he was picked on, and he had no friends, had no girlfriend, and he tried to commit suicide, and he was in the hospital, and they just wanted to understand where his mindset was. So I talked to them, and then I went, you know what? Let me see if I can get some autographs. So I'm sure you remembered me posting this. It was like a month straight. I contacted everybody on Twitter that I could. If I seen a wrestler tweeting, I was like, okay, there's an at. It might be somebody this guy knows. 3 people contacted me back. Now, I'm not saying that John Cena blew me off. If John Cena saw this, he's the type of guy who would react.
Right.
But I'm saying, I'm just adding all these people. I actually contacted a WWE Hall of Famer who I know personally, and he blew me off. Him, I'm not going to mention, but he just disappointed me. But like to Cena and The Rock, I guarantee they never saw my tweet.
Right. There's too much going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of 1,000 ats that they got, so I'm not ripping into anybody for that. 3 people responded: Moxley, Cody Rhodes, and Kenny Omega. They responded and said, "How could we help?" And then I had dialogue with all of them, and sadly, the kid passed away before we were able to get him ordered. I know Kenny and Cody were going to go to tapings and get everybody to sign stuff. So that made me realize how good a lot of the celebrities are on the celebrity end. I mean, Dave and Brian, they're media celebrities, but they're not Moxley, they're not Cody, and they're not Omega. And they were like, how could we help this kid? Let us know.
So how did you get connected with Dave and Brian? Because I know we want to talk about, you mentioned the Twitter cesspool. There is a really sort of bad side to that community, but there's a lot of really great people in the wrestling community.
Yeah.
But how did you get connected with Dave and Brian in that way?
I never spoke to Brian in my life until I was in ICU. I never tweeted to him. He never tweeted to me. Dave was a different story. I got Twitter basically to follow wrestling news and regular news. Mm-hmm. And there was a point where Dave and I got into a conversation, and Dave put me over and he retweeted, this guy gets it, or something like that. So immediately I got 2 different types of people who contacted me. People who liked Dave and said, oh, let me follow this guy, see what he has to say. And people who hated Dave to tell me that I'm a kiss ass and, Dave and I are never going to have sex, which is a good thing. I'm really, really happy that they understood that, because I don't think Dave wants it, but even if you do, buddy, you're not getting it from me. So I get it. You're not going to fuck him. Thank you. I didn't realize that was on the table.
The low self-esteem wrestling community is pretty
yes,
bad.
You're right. I'm not going to have sex with Dave Meltzer. I'm saying that on your show in front of your 4.5 million listeners as well. But they didn't just realize that I could appreciate the guy's work and stick up for somebody whose work I appreciated. Then when I went into the hospital, Dave reacted on that immediately. He, with how you doing and private messaging, and out of nowhere, I got a DM from Brian asking me how I'm doing, and I didn't even know Brian knew I existed. But I guess he saw my name through Dave and realized I wasn't a troll, and that built that relationship. And then they, obviously they did fundraisers for me, and they were just supportive as friends. I mean, they have both been publicly saying that we're friends. It's no longer just some guy they know. And I agree. I think they're both incredible people. And the people surrounding them, you included, and pretty much everybody I dealt with on that website has been nothing short of fantastic. And the people that follow them, for the right reasons, because they like their info, have been incredibly supportive, and this is not an exaggeration. They saved my life because they helped cover my bills. And this sounds sad to say, and I'm sure people are rolling their eyes, and I don't care. I'm not looking at you. Roll your eyes, do whatever you want.
No, this is real though.
My life is prolonged because of these great people that have helped me. Every month that I'm alive, I'm $1,000 in debt. And I'm not talking vacations. I'm not even talking medically. If I had it medically, I'm hundreds of thousands in debt. Mm-hmm. Between me and you, and I'm sorry, whoever, in the long run, but these hospitals aren't going to get the money. I don't have hundreds of thousands to pay the hospitals. They understand that. Everybody understands that. But just getting through each month and taking that stress level off me has made me live longer than I would have lived if I got evicted, if I didn't have rent for next month. And Brian and Dave doing fundraisers for me and getting the community to rally behind me, and them posting about me, and professional wrestlers seeing it and contacting me and hearing about my story. And for anybody out there who's a Dave and Brian hater, If you think that they don't know people in the wrestling industry, I know you know because you're friends with Dave. The people who have contacted me because Dave Meltzer tweeted about me once would put me at number 3 in the connections list as far as wrestling media goes.
Yeah.
I can contact champions, Hall of Famers, and I do constantly, because they reached out to me because Dave and Brian talked about me. So it's funny. Oh, Dave has no connections anymore. It's 2020. Yeah, so
Right.
It's ridiculous. I have connections because Dave Meltzer tweeted my name. That's how connected Dave Meltzer is. So, the other half of that community, I get death threats every day. I told you people have, tried to hack into my Twitter, my emails accounts. They're trying to harass a dying person because that dying person is friends with Dave Meltzer.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You have that, and then you have all the people that write me just to see how I'm feeling that day. To sit there and say, I'm healthy and you're an inspiration, because I never realized how much I got. I had somebody write me once that they thought wearing a mask was idiotic until they saw me talk about how much each breath is worth to me. And he said, I was sitting there thinking, holy shit, I'm going to wear this mask for the Great Fowler. Just think of that sentence, how stupid that is, but that's helping people. I'm going to wear this mask for a guy called the Great Fowler, on the internet, because he made sense. It made it personal for people to understand how important each breath is. And if you have something to live for, don't take that for granted. If you don't have anything to live for in your mind, contact somebody to discuss it. Because a friend of mine said something to me once, and I'm glad I went on this diatribe because I thought of it. He said, the world is a better place with you in it, Jay. I never forgot that. The world's a better place with 99.99% of the people in it.
So you mentioned something that actually reminded me of something, which is the whole story with the mask. So I wanted to ask you about this T-shirt story in a second with Jim Valley, but so when the pandemic first, like even before it started. For me to get to work, I have to take a public transit, which is in the Bay Area. People know BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. So it's like a subway system technically, and as you can imagine, it's very filthy. So, but even before,
buddy, I was born and raised in Manhattan. I all know about filthy transportation
for sure. So, before the pandemic started, there's the coronavirus that's not really hit the U.S. Very quickly yet, and so I'm on the BART, and there's this woman who is on the train, and she's wearing a mask, and I really didn't tie the two things together as far as the pandemic is concerned. But so I sit next to her, not in the same thing, but like maybe behind her. And she kind of got up and she moved. And I was like, wow, that was really weird. And so I posted on Twitter about it, which is a super insensitive thing to do now that we know what is going on. And I had a conversation with Jim Valley, and Jim Valley was telling me about how ill he can get and how he has to be really, really careful to not get sick. And so after, talk about conversations that really change your mindset about this stuff. And so Jim and I have that conversation. My view of mask wearing and all of that stuff immediately changes. And, I'm very safe when it comes to that stuff, but just talking to somebody who lives a life where he has to be so careful to not get sick, or else he gets really sick. Right. That really struck me, and I don't wear a mask because of Jim Valley, but I am as safe as humanly possible and careful and thoughtful about this. Not only because of Jim, but very much because he gave me that information and he gave me what he has to live through.
Well, it became personal to you. Yeah. So it mattered more. And it wasn't that you were being a jackass prior to that. It was, you just didn't have as strong as frame of reference as somebody like myself or Jim does.
Yes.
I get COVID, I'm going to die. Right. I have no room for error. I have 10% heart on a good day. if you lose 10% heart, you have 90%. I lose 10%, I'm dead.
Right.
So I have to look at everything. I have to sometimes time out when I'm going to get my mail with the garbage so I don't have to walk up and down the steps twice. Like, well, let me bring the garbage down later when the mail's here. So I have to go. There are some days that I can't go to get my medication because I'm breathing too heavily, or my heart's good, and my medication's a block and a half away. I make sure wherever I move to, I have, I had a CVS or a Walgreens or, someplace to get my medication nearby. Because without my medication, if I don't take my medication for 2 or 3 days, I'm dead. So it's personalizing things for people, which is what I was saying about the suicides and around the time of the holiday. I'm not going to tell somebody, oh, things aren't that bad.
Right.
Bullshit. How do I know? I don't know I don't know this person, Tom from Idaho. Maybe things are that bad. I'm just trying to let them know that life is worth living and to look at things. And I do understand what they went through. Somebody like me who thought about giving up will understand somebody thinking about giving up. And I might be the person that helps them more than a psychiatrist who's getting paid to do it, or somebody that means well, like yourself, who's never been through that.
Sure.
It's like I know what they're feeling. And lots of times I'll just sit there and go, I don't have any answers for you, but I'll tell you my story. And that helps a lot of people. So I am very happy I went public with everything I've done. I mean, not just has it helped me from a bill paying standpoint, and not just to get me a lot of e-friends, as I call it. I know I've helped people, and it's really true. When you help others, you help yourself. You feel better about yourself. I can't work a job. I had to make sure I had about an hour today where I knew I was going to be feeling okay to have this conversation with you. If you just called me last night at 8 o'clock, I would have probably said no.
Yeah.
I'm lying in bed. I don't have it in me to do it. Like, legitimately, I have to plan out almost everything I'm going to do. And half the time I can't do it. So now I got a purpose. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to try to live that day, and I'm going to try to help people. And if people did that while they were healthier, holy shit, man, what a better place we'd be in.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's what I'm trying to get across to people. And I'm starting to get passionate and upbeat. That's what I'm trying to get across to people. I wish I did this 20 years ago.
I mean, it is an amazing thought to have that. And I hope that, the people listening, everyone's human, right? They're going to listen to this conversation. They're going to go, yeah, what Jay is saying makes so much sense, and they're going to get inspired and they're going to do something. But how do we, as human beings, we're dealing with different stuff, but how do we sort of stay in that mindset? I think that's a great way to look at things.
Yes. Well, a lot of people are going to listen to this, and if they're a decent person, they're going to be somewhat affected by it and relate it in some way. But the truth is, 95% are going to forget about it in an hour. And I get that. That doesn't make them a bad person. But somewhere down the road, they might be reminded by this conversation. And guess what? If they don't, that's cool. If 5% of your 4.5 million listeners, if 5% of whatever number you got listen to this, help somebody, holy shit, this is the most successful podcast we've ever had.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, I hear that.
Otherwise, you're talking about the UFC from the other night. And I know. And I listen to it. I like it. I'm a UFC fan. I get into it. But all you do is come away from that going, Dana's a billionaire.
Yes. Look, and look, there's some of this is just people want to listen to stuff that entertains them for an hour. And that's cool. And that's a service as well. And that's partially
I'm a big Bowery Boy fan.
Why we do this.
There's nothing stupider than that. I mean, you need that. But it's just like, man, if you can help one person and potentially save their life, you've done so much with your life.
Amazing. It's amazing.
If every person did that for one person, just think how much better we'd be.
All right. So before we completely get off, where's what's the Jim Valley and the T-shirts story? How's that thing going? What's the latest?
When Jim got healthier and we knew he wasn't going to pass, I wrote that Jim Valley is my FICU tag team partner, because everybody's using letters now. And, because he kicked out and I kicked out. So I said, he's my tag team partner. And Jim goes, I love it. And somebody goes, oh, you guys should make a T-shirt. I never thought of that. I mean, I don't think of things like that. Now after The Undertaker, I'm thinking of doing a fucking cameo from a deathbed. Okay, now I'm sitting there going, but the screwed up thing is, if I do a cameo from my deathbed, I'm not going to be able to use the money. So it makes absolutely no sense. But the Undertaker and I felt so bad because I ripped into anybody who bought an Undertaker cameo for $1,000. Then I saw Brian got one for Granny, and I felt so bad. I mean, I'm like, what idiot would do this? Better nobody on my timeline. Better have bought an Undertaker cameo for. Why give a billionaire like Vince and $100 millionaire like the Undertaker $1,000? Then Brian goes and buys a cameo for his 90-year-old grandmother. I felt
because
so bad.
he thought he needed to buy her the Great Fowler cameo appearance.
But yeah, so now I'm thinking, like after that, I'm like, all right, how can I monetize everything I do? Here's a video of me relaxing on my way to CVS, $5. But seriously, I never thought of anything like a charity T-shirt. So I said, if Jim's good for it, I am. And somebody wrote me, I'll take care of everything. And I said, good, because, I don't have the time to put into a T-shirt. He goes, I know somebody who'll do the T-shirts, design it, and do all this. 10 days later, nothing. I had to design the T-shirts. And then I get contacted and said, it's a Wednesday morning. Can you get Dave, Brian, and maybe John Moxley to write up something for the website? Because if we can advertise it, they're behind it. Blah, blah, blah. They wanted videos. I go, first of all, Moxley's not going to do a video. Dave's not going to do a video. Not that he wouldn't. He doesn't know how. And Brian, I'm not going to ask Brian to record a video saying buy a T-shirt.
Right.
I said, I'll get them to write like a little blurb. Hey, Jim Valley's on our website, and Jay, the Great Fowler, are good people, help them anyway. I said, that's not a problem. So I go through all of this, and then these guys ghost me. So it pissed me the F off because I already promoted it. I never thought, as I'm dying, that 2 idiots online will waste my time. Like, who wastes a dying person's time? But it just reminds me, like, I wanted to promote that today. That was one of the things I was excited about doing this. So I was like, oh, we could promote it on your show. I even looked up like a URL for the T-shirt, ficut.com. It was available. And what would be the most we'd sell? 50 T-shirts? Mm-hmm. So we make like a few $100 each. It was just something cool to do and get awareness out there for helping other people and maybe tie it into people with suicide prevention. And then just people wasting my time. And I hate going into the negative aspect, and we'll move on. But I promoted that we're going to discuss a few things tonight and helping people around the holidays. Checklist. The T-shirts, I didn't think it would be a negative. And then the other one about the FBI follow me around New Jersey, which is a funny story. But it's just, I don't know. I mean, like, people have contacted me, do you need a T-shirt guy? I don't need any of this. Mm-hmm. Somebody contacted me and said, let's do a charity T-shirt for you and Jim Valley. I mean, if a T-shirt guy wants to contact me and he's not going to charge an arm and a leg and he's not going to make any profit and people are going to get a good quality T-shirt within a reasonable amount of time, because that's important to me, and not get ripped off.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Nobody has to buy it. If 10 people buy it, there's 10 people walking around with a T-shirt, FICU. I think it's kind of a cool logo. You know what I mean? Yeah. But so that's the issue. And I wanted to touch on one negative, because don't waste people's time, man.
Right.
If you can, like, I wouldn't waste your time. And Garrett, you're a busy guy. You have your kids and you're newly married. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you have your health. You might have a few hours to waste a day, but nobody should make that choice for you to waste it.
Sure.
Don't waste sick, dying people's times so you can get internet clout, is what I'm trying to say. Focus. And that made me realize, like, the good people like yourself and other people out there are going to be who I put my attention to. So unless somebody comes with a complete package, there is going to be no T-shirt. I'm not looking to be in the T-shirt business.
All right, so let's save...
I leave that for A&W.
Let's save the FBI surveillance story for the end. I do want to ask you one specific wrestling question, because, this is a wrestling podcast. But...
How many people you think tuned out of the 4.5 million? But
hopefully nobody, because I think your story is very interesting, and like you said, and if you have that sort of inspirational gene, like, this is kind of the stuff that works for that kind of person. But so for wrestling, like, what is your wrestling story? Who were your favorites? Like, when did you start watching and connecting,
I thought
wanting to join Twitter to follow Dave?
Oh God, that's like 35 years from the beginning to that point. In a nutshell, in the 80s, everybody was the Hulk Hogan, Hulkamaniac, WrestleMania fan. I thought it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I didn't like it. It was dumb. I watched Hulk Hogan on all these shows. I thought he was the biggest phony there was, and later that was proven to be correct. I seen him throw punches that were at least 3 inches away from King Kong Bundy's head. You know, at the first WrestleMania I ever saw, or whatever that one was, WrestleMania 2. And then one day I'm flipping through the channels and I see Randy Savage walk into the ring with Elizabeth. And I went, oh, this is different. This is kind of rock and roll. Here's this crazy long-haired guy, and he's walking with this gorgeous hot girl. I'm not, that's not wrestling to me, so let me see where this goes. And I see him taking the bell and hitting Steamboat in the larynx. Now, by today's standard, that's tame. Back then, I was like, holy crap, this is on Saturday morning television?
With Vince McMahon screaming that Steamboat swallowed his tongue.
Yeah, all of that. But it was just like, that was pretty violent. And Randy Savage was just cool. And Elizabeth was gorgeous. And I'm like, all right, this I like a lot more than, a Bolden biker in shorts, in short tights, cupping his ear and having people scream. I didn't get the appeal to that. So I started only watching Randy Savage matches. And I saw Randy and Steamboat WrestleMania 3, and I was hooked. And then I said I wanted to find out more about the behind the scenes because I knew it was the work. And here's a funny story that Dave doesn't even know. I subscribed to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. I got it. I hated it.
Wow.
I hated it.
What year would have this been?
88, 89.
Oh my gosh, so you go way back.
Well, yeah, well, I only lasted those 4 weeks because I got it, and 80% of it was about somebody I didn't hear of. It was like, some Mexican guy, I thought wrestling, I wanted to read about what Randy Savage did on the top. Like, I wanted the New York Post, I got the New York Times.
Yeah, when I first started watching wrestling, I was like, okay, WWF is wrestling. And then when I realized that there were so many other things, it just like exploded my brain. I couldn't even really understand, how the whole territory thing works. So I completely get what you're talking about.
But it wasn't even like America. It was like, I get this thing and I'm like, what language is half of this written in? I didn't know what a luchador was. I didn't even know what that word meant.
Yeah.
And I'm reading about this like 60-year-old luchador from Mexico. And I'm like, I paid for this. I don't want this. I don't want to return this. So I never subbed up again. And then one day I was listening to John Arizzi, and that's who I heard Dave Meltzer through. And he had Wade Keller on, who he brought up Wade Keller. And I was like, let me try that. And Wade was more than New York Post.
Right.
And that's not putting Wade down. Wade just audience is different.
Yeah, his audience, he knew exactly what his audience wanted.
Yeah, he talked about Lex Luger and Hulk Hogan. I knew who they were. I didn't know who 90% of the people Dave thought were great. And I didn't care to, and which was my right at that point. And it was, you can call me ignorant, but, back then there was no internet. So I wasn't going to start tape trading to find out about some Mexican guy that Dave thought was a great wrestler. I wanted to know what Miss Elizabeth was like backstage. So I followed that. I followed Wade for a while. And then once the internet came about and Dave hooked up with Brian, I gave it a shot, probably in the mid-zeros. And I was like, all right, I like these two guys. That's where I'm going to settle. And then, I never wrote to Dave, never bothered. I mean, my wrestling fandom started waning probably a little after, probably when Shawn Michaels retired. And, CM Punk kept my interest for a little bit. And then basically my interest was the newsletter and the audio shows. And, I appreciated how hard they worked. And then, I was like, all right, let me check out, I heard Dave and Brian talking about Twitter. And I said, all right, let me follow them on Twitter. And, I followed them in some other things, which eventually, I moved away from. And I just made it a wrestling Twitter. And I got to know them as people. And I think they're legitimately two of the best people I know online.
All right, so let's talk about two more things. One of them is this story, but then we're gonna talk about if people want to support you. We'll send them all of the information. But you told me don't forget to ask me about this. So I'm so interested because I have no idea what I'm about to hear. But what's the FBI surveillance story?
You almost said FCC. What am I, Howard Stern? What am I other heroes?
Baba Booey.
Yeah. And Baba Booey to you all. Okay. I moved into a winter rental in Margate City, which is near Atlantic City in New Jersey. The reason that's important is because winter rentals are at like 1/3 the price of a normal rental. So with some help financially each month, I could afford living here. I don't know if I'm going to be live when the winter rental ends, so this is perfect for me. So I'm basically in this 20-something unit building, and there's hardly anybody here in the winter. So one day I hear this lady screaming and yelling, so I go out on the balcony area. Not that I have a balcony, but it's like all the entrances are like attached to a balcony. And I'm listening to hear whether or not like somebody's hitting her or she's arguing with somebody, because then I'd get involved. It would have to be a one-punch knockout because I'm not in the shape I used to be heart-wise, but I'm willing to help her. I don't hear anybody. I see her come out and I say, "You okay?" She goes, "A package was stolen." I said, "Oh, that sucks." So we start talking and she goes, "Yeah, it was money that somebody sent me." And I'm like, I feel really bad. I said, "Listen, I'm here most of the time. Anytime something comes, you can have them leave it with me. And, come up and get it, if you want." And she goes, "Oh, I know who your landlords are. They spoke highly of you. That's great." I said, "I have no issue doing that. Unless I'm in the hospital, I'll be here." So I get a few packages, and, it always made me wonder why somebody sent her money by FedEx anyway, but, it's none of my business. So I'm, when you can just PayPal somebody. So I get 2 or 3 packages for her. And one day she goes, "Oh, great, I needed this." And I kidded around. I go, "What was it? Contraband?" And she goes, "No, socks." And I'm going, now I'm like, I'm like keeping packages of socks. This is some weird broad. FBI show up one morning at like 5 a.m, and they're looking for a mobster who rents downstairs. Okay, well, they're all over the world, no big deal. I walk out, they're like, "Oh, everything's cool, don't worry about it." Okay. About 10 days ago, it made all the papers that a guy at this address was one of 15 mobsters they got for racketeering, murdering, drugs, everything an Italian mobster does. Okay. Now I'm going, I wonder if that's the same apartment. So I go down and I look on the apartment and it says, "Any packages leave with Jay at number 23. So the FBI, one of the top 5 mobsters, I'm the guy that gets his packages for him when he's not around. So I've been collecting money, socks. Who knows what's in the socks? How many 8 balls were in the socks? So I'm sitting there going, this is effing unbelievable. So I seen a cop one day, on my way to CVS to get my mail, and I said, "I'm just going to ask him." And I said, "Here's my situation," and he stops laughing. He goes, "Oh yeah, you're being kept an eye on."
Wow.
And he goes, and he mentioned my last name, and I was just like, "So the precinct knows about me?" He goes, "Yeah, we don't think anything's up," but he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, your sign's on the door that you're the person collecting the packages for a mafia guy who can't collect the packages anymore."
Oh my God.
So in the middle of all of this going on, like, all I wanted was a nice quiet place to die. And now, the FBI drives by, I wave, they wave. Right? It's, yeah. So, wow. Remember the mob.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Okay, let me hear this segue, Mr. Podcast.
So I did have a planned segue, and before we get to the end of this, sure. I'm going to say that, this podcast, because it goes up in our feed, and, we are a Blue Wire podcast, it will have ads on it. they've heard all the ads already. But what I'm also going to do is, in about a week, I'm going to put this in our YouTube feed so I can make it ad free. So if people want to link to stuff or just kind of, this thing will sort of live on, for a while. And it just feels a little weird to have ads on a show like this, but then
not at all. Listen, you got to support the people who support.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But it just, I just want people to know, like, okay,
so who are your advertisers? Do you have the standard podcast advertisers? You got penis pills and all that?
So we did do some Roman what is it, the
penis pills, just call them what they are.
I mean, I don't know, are they pills? I actually don't know, but so we had
wait,
way in the beginning.
You were shilling for penis pumps?
So way in the beginning, I had to do like 2 reads for the Roman thing. And then, but mostly it's been, so people who are listening to this have heard this, but Bet Online has been our biggest sponsor for the shows. And so, I always love doing the Bet Online read because, they're just constantly with us. So, it's kind of fun to do it too. It's sports.
You can tie that into UFC, and
it's totally sports related. So anyways, okay. So now we'll get to the point where I know that, you didn't, this part, I hope it doesn't make you uncomfortable because I know people really want to support. Once we get off here, I'm going to
be honest about that. It does, but it's needed.
Yes.
And honestly, we had this conversation. The fact that it's needed is the part that makes me feel uncomfortable. So I just want to tell people in advance, you can go to the website, read my story. Do not feel obligated to give me a cent. Just to support, write me a nice note saying, hey, man, good luck. That helps me more than you know. I don't expect anybody to help a stranger do anything. That's not how society works. The fact that people have is truly amazing. I know people who are billionaires who never did, and I don't look at them any differently. I'm not going to look at somebody struggling to pay their mortgage or pay their car insurance. I'm in this situation because I was dealt the hand I was dealt. It's nobody's responsibility to get me out. So if you just want to read about my story or you just want to contact me to ask a question, feel free. If you want to contact me to troll, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? And really think about your parents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like your parents are probably not happy they raised somebody who's trolling a dying person. I mean, and I get that daily. But I mean, if you're coming from the right place, man, read my story. If it can help somebody, send it to them. There's no monetary attachment to anything that I do.
And that's at greatfowler.com.
Yeah, greatfowler.com. And it sounds like, I'm a businessman by that. A guy named Ush, USH on Twitter, bought me that domain name because he goes, it's so stupid putting Wix /
yes.
Dot, and I'm just like, I'm not thinking of it as, as I'm not looking at my health as a merchant, but yeah, somebody got me that website. It's just easier. And you can reach me at thegreatfowler@gmail.com or at thegreatfowler on Twitter. And if anybody wants to reach me, so yeah, I do feel awkward about what you're about to say now, so I'm going to shut up and let you do it.
So once we get off, I'm gonna donate. I feel really privileged to be able to do this, and I want to support you as much as I can as well. And just over the years, we've had these conversations here and there in DM, and when I was first doing the podcast, like you said, you were reaching out, like going like, oh, when is it going to be up? I'm up, and I'm like, oh shoot, like there's someone at 2:00 in the morning my time, getting ready to listen.
5 o'clock my time.
Yeah, 5 your time. And so, that stuff means a lot, and obviously just keeping in touch. And look, we gotta help we gotta help our people here. And the one thing that I think is really cool is that, there's this saying about giving people their flowers when they can still smell them. And that saying, as I've gotten older and as I've had a little bit more perspective on what my life means and my influence on people and my kids and now my stepkids, like that saying means a whole lot. And it's something that's very like just in my mind a lot is the people who you love, like tell them now, because you may not get the opportunity with the pandemic, with COVID-19. You hear these stories of people who are just healthy as can be one day, and then they get the virus, and then boom, 2 days later they're just really in bad shape. So that is the one thing that you've been saying many great things for people to think about on the show. The one thing that I will say is that saying, give people their flowers when they can still smell them. That is a thing that your situation is constantly reminding me of. Thank you. As well.
Well, in that, just before you go into what you're about to go into, that doesn't have to be monetarily either. That can just be being nice to somebody and helping them. And that's the biggest key, because that's something everybody can do. And that's something it was about a week ago I put something I did nice for somebody that I wasn't planning on doing that day when I woke up on Twitter. And I said, if everybody else do something like that and explain it. 2 people did in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
After that 2 hours, I posted a funny cat pic. I had about 40 responses in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I know, and I just went, guys, you're the best people in the world. I know. Just think about, go help somebody. And about 10, 15 other people jumped on there like, oh man, I didn't even realize. But you're right. We take things for granted. You don't have to give money to help somebody.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And it's not like thing. Yeah. It could be your parents who you haven't heard from who haven't heard from you because of the pandemic, and just staying more in communication and stuff like that. It could be
treating the bus driver who you're giving your bus ticket to nicely. It could help them drive that next 10, 15 minutes, because the guy before them was a complete jerk. I waited out here 20 minutes. It's the bus, not the bus driver's fault. Right. You come on. Hey, man, how you doing, man? I hope you have a good day. Thank you. That helps that person be nicer to the next person. It's little things like that people could so easily do. There's a great life lesson. Don't be a prick. Okay? If you don't be a prick, life will be a lot better. So just being nice to people. And now go ahead, do the part that.
Yeah. So just if you want to donate to Jay, go to thegreatfowler.com, like he mentioned. By the way, do you know even what Fowler means?
I'm assuming I spelt it Fowler, because it made it funnier, so I have no idea.
So a fowler is a person who hunts wild fowl. That is what a fowler is, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Well, all I'll say right now is I'm fucking good at it, because I'm great. And again, Moxley, if you lasted this long, Fowler good. It ties into everything. You can be Fowler good stat. That is so cool. I know, Renee, I know right now you're saying no fucking way. Think about it. Fowler good.
All right, so go to thegreatfowler.com. There's a giant donate button, but also, like Jay said, there's an email there.
There's a giant donate button.
There is. Like, it stands out. Like, you can't miss it. Yeah. And, again, that's... I know this makes you a little bit uncomfortable, but... Like that's a way to help. But the other way to help is, like you said, you have the helpj@email.com email address. Your entire story is on this page. Just keep scrolling down. You can kind of read from the bottom up. And look, a lot of the things that we're talking about in this podcast, you are writing about, sort of the people who help save your life and all that. So even in this writing, it's very thoughtful the way that you're doing this. So support Jay. This is just from me. This is not from you. Support Jay. Jay's a really good dude. Again, this community that Dave and Brian have built, and my podcast is very now much an extended part of that community. Absolutely. Because I do the shows with Dave. We need to help each other. We need to take care of each other as much as we can. I'm not saying, go bankrupt to do this, but if you do have a few dollars here and there that you can help Jay with, definitely donate. I'm going to donate once we get off of this. And now we don't have to talk about it, because I know it makes you a little bit uncomfortable, but I wanted to say that. I get that out.
I don't want to turn it into begging. It's right, not neat, totally. But
that's coming from me. That's coming from me.
But again, the most important thing is not just my situation. It's the holidays. even without COVID, people are more suicidal now than ever. Pay attention to them. Don't make them feel bad about how they're feeling. Reach out to them and just let them know you care, and steal my friend's line. The world is a better place with you in it. You tell people that, it really makes them feel good about themselves. And you don't know, that person that you cursed out for something they didn't do might be on the verge of being suicidal. You don't want to be that person that makes them jump. Really think about others during the holiday season. If you don't have it shitty, you have it better than most people. Think about that, and think about the other people, because as bad as my situation is, there are people with it a lot worse, and those are who I'm focusing on. And I can be 100% honest. I feel better every day that I'm still alive, because I'm focusing on the people who have it worse than I do. And if you do that, your life is better, because it's just, you're surrounding yourself with just good karma and positivity. And to tie this into wrestling, I could really give a shit about the Godfather Val Venus feud from Sunday night.
Jay, I'm so glad that you agreed to do this.
So am I.
This is one of the favorite interviews that I've ever done, just because of how real it is and how connected. This
was some 15 minutes I gave you. I gave you a 15-minute window. Yeah. This might be the last interview I ever do, because I'm tired as fuck now, man.
No,
I hope cursing's okay. I should have asked this an hour and a half ago. All right,
come on. I knew what we were getting into here.
Motherfucker, it's great talking to you. And I'm gonna end it. You can tag it any way you want. Okay. I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna X out that little thing on the screen. Thank you. Thank everybody who's thought of helping me. Thank everybody who did help me. Thank you for the fundraisers. Thank you to anybody who read my website and couldn't help me, but just gave me positive thoughts. This community is great. Twitter can be great. Everything can be great. You have it in you to do that. You can make your own surroundings so much better. And as bad as you have it, there's other people who have it worse. I might have it worse than most of you. There are a lot more people who have it worse than me. They're missing limbs. They're missing this. I got a community of people I don't know helping pay my rent each month. My life doesn't suck. My future isn't as full as many people, but my daily life doesn't suck because of great people.